A little while ago, I asked you guys to send me some manga recommendations. The only rule I gave you was not to send me something you wouldn't read in public, which I quickly realized was a massive mistake because some of you are complete animals. But I'm a man of my word, so I randomly selected 30 of your recommendations. And today, I'm going to read all of them, whether they're amazing or absolutely terrible. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? So the first manga recommendation comes from Tako Meitan, who says that I should read Tomahawk Angel, which is not a good manga title. Okay, so I don't know if that's what I was reading it on, but this manga is like a vertical scrolling experience, which is yeah, listen, I'm old-fashioned. I want to read a book side to side, okay? Okay? The story starts with a question. What if you had the power to save the world? Would you save it? Or would you let it burn? His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. The author does this thing where we're in Greece, so they actually write in Greek with translations. I want authors to do that more, please. Also, you know how manga are black and white and manhwa are colored, right? Well, this author was just like, I'm gonna make parts of it black and white, but then other parts are gonna be fully colored. Bam! And I swear, this seems like a tiny thing, but it's actually such a cool idea. Because the author can literally direct your eyes exactly where they want them to go. They also do this thing where they intentionally mess up the way certain lines look to create this disturbing effect. Honestly, I think the story is okay, but I just love and really respect the fact that this person was trying to do some interesting visual stuff. So, mwah! The next recommendation is Prolly Wazowski, who says Juujika No Rokunin with a smiling devil face. Let me tell you something. If someone uses that emoji in a manga recommendation, you just know you're about to read something absolutely unhinged. Listen, I was originally planning to read 3, 5, maybe 10 chapters per manga, but this plan is gone now. I'm gonna be honest, I've never actually read a revenge manga because it kind of reminds me of Sasuke from Naruto, and that dude is cringe. But oh my goodness, I totally get it now. So this group of dudes are treating this kid like trash, okay? But their leader is just like, no, this is not enough. I don't want to just hurt him. I am going to completely destroy his sanity by getting his entire family into a car crash. Wow. This happens, and then there's a 4-year time skip where the main character trains to get revenge with his grandpa, who was in this brutal military elite squad. At some point, this man captures one of the guys and does things to him that are so intense I can genuinely not show them to you right now. He is like the definition of cope. It didn't take 3 or 5 chapters to hook me. It took 1. I need to see this man absolutely destroy these guys. Now. Alright, so LS Diva told me to check out Hat Atelier, and yes, that's how it's pronounced. What did I just read? What the actual heck is going on with this art? I need someone to explain to me how a human being with the same 2 hands and 10 fingers as me has managed to create something this freaking gorgeous. I'm sitting here reading through these panels and I genuinely feel bad because it takes me, what, 2 seconds to look at each panel while this person probably poured every ounce of their soul into them? I am not even exaggerating when I say that this might be the most visually stunning manga I've ever laid my eyes on. And I have read a lot of manga at this point, okay? But just when I thought I was safe admiring the pretty pictures, the magic system comes in and absolutely destroys my soul because it is so messed up and cool and unique. LS Diva, thank you for ruining my life because now every other manga is gonna look terrible in comparison. I hope you're happy. The next manga recommendation comes from Indresh, who just wrote Mad Manga with no extra context. Nice. Okay, so, I think I fully understand why it's called Mad. Right off the bat, we're on this post-apocalyptic world where these aliens crash on Earth with a meteorite, and they basically obliterate, like, most of the planet. So then there are survivors, and they're trying to find help, and why are there creatures that look like goats with a bird beak? And I'm thinking, okay, this is already kind of insane. But then bam, the surviving humans are like, hey guys, yeah? You see that alien? Yeah? I think we should eat it. Okay. Yeah, but the only little tiny problem with this strategy is that almost everyone that tries this is just straight up turned into a zombie, except for a couple of them that become half human and half alien. So what do they decide to do? They capture people and force them to eat alien meat. I know I was supposed to read only a few chapters, but I genuinely binged almost all of it, so yeah, solid manga. Okay, so because this person sent me like 10 different recommendations, I'm just gonna randomly pick one. So this is Dragon and Chameleon. It's the story of a famous manga author who's in the middle of creating a masterpiece. Like, imagine the new One Piece or something. But then he suddenly just switches bodies with some beginner manga author who works for him, and the dude just takes his job. So basically, the famous author has to start from zero. This is genuinely one of the most hilarious things I've ever read. The main character is so talented that people just lose their mind over anything he writes. Like, this one dude reads some of his manga and starts crying and regretting all of his life choices. And this other girl reads it and says, "The dialogue ravaged my entire body." What do you even mean? This is a manga about making manga, but instead of feeling like a documentary, there's this cool twist to keep everything interesting. Reading this genuinely made me feel kind of dumb because I read a ton of manga, but I have absolutely zero idea about how you actually make a manga. So, Agent Moss sent me Drifting Dragons. And okay guys, you genuinely have to stop sending me really long manga because I don't have the time to read all of this. It's impossible. Come on! Dude, you thought Delicious in Dungeon was original for combining fantasy and cooking? These characters hunt dragons from flying ships, and then they use their meat to make the most delicious looking food. Like, look at this dragon sandwich! And at the end of the chapter, there is literally a recipe for the sandwich and all the other recipes as well. Also, I love the fact that the first dragon in this manga is just like an octopus with feathers, and the second one is basically a flying whale. It's actually really cool to get a variety of different dragon designs each chapter instead of just a big lizard with wings. All the recommendations so far were absolute bangers. I was feeling genuinely happy and honestly kind of impressed because my viewers apparently have incredible taste in manga. But then I got to the next recommendation. All right, so Arsène Lupin recommended this manga called Fuuka. He says it's about romance, music, resilience. It's a whole roller coaster of emotions. Okay, pretty cool. Okay, so this guy is just minding his own business on his phone when this blue-haired girl doesn't just run into him, she jumps on him, doesn't apologize, assumes he's taking pictures of her, breaks his phone, knocks him out, and then runs away. Now, any normal person would probably be like, hey, what just happened? I need to get help. But our boy picks up one of the CDs that the girl dropped and thinks, I need to return it to her. Then, where does he find her? On the rooftop of his school, staring into the distance like she was the main character of a shonen. And of course, this goofball decides to actually take a picture of her, so she throws his phone off the rooftop? I'm sorry, but do you realize how easily that could crack someone's skull? And he still gives her back her CD? So he goes to look for his phone. She follows him, and he's like, are you going to slap me again? And she goes, I will, if that's what you want. Oh, look, apart from the fact that this is something I would never pick up in a million years, there are just a little bit too many questionable panels in this manga. Next. So, Enigmatic Egg asked me to check out Gleipnir because apparently it's incredibly unique. Okay, dude, so when you said incredibly unique, that didn't really begin to describe this thing. So this guy sees a burning building and then runs into the fire to save some random girl. But for reasons that I do not understand, the dude has some kind of special powers that turn him into one of the coolest looking monsters I've ever seen in my entire life. There's this one scene where it's literally this guy fighting a little girl with tiger claws, and I hate that it's so good. But once again, why are there so many questionable panels that have absolutely nothing to do with the story? Can I please just enjoy the freaking So Nazasu teardrops this recommendation for the Urban Legend Files, and of course, I'm incredibly hyped because apparently it's like Dandadan, so I'm pretty sure some of the spirits in this are based on the same urban legends as Dandadan, like that creepy lady who asks if she looks pretty, and this one character who is literally also in Dandadan, but apart from that, I don't really really see it. There's this dude who attracts spirits, and he's described as this total freaking weirdo, right? When you actually see him, why does he look like he just stepped out of a Calvin Klein commercial? Also, there's an occult club where one of the girls is obviously not a normal person. At some point, they summon a spirit from Mexico who can tell if someone is lying, and when they don't believe one of his answers, this one dude goes, yeah, I mean, he came all the way here from Mexico. He must be jet-lagged. This is so stupid. Okay, I'm being harsh. This kind of feels like a laid-back version of Dandadan. Next. So Odd Batman recommends Kajiki Chef because it's cool. Not gonna lie, I really need something cool right now. Okay, so this guy is a cook, and he's removing rust from a knife, and when he gets all the rust off, the knife starts talking. But while the knife is talking, they get attacked by a flying shark. The knife is like, hey, thanks for getting the rust off. I really appreciate it. And the dude is like, why are you a talking knife? And the knife is like, oh, I'm an object that gains sentience through old age. Anyway, those things don't matter right now. Excuse me, but, those things do matter right now? You're a talking knife? So the cook kid combines with the knife and gains the ultimate anime power. White hair. After this transformation, he proceeds to deliver what might be the filthiest roast I've ever heard. You're nothing but a common ingredient. Ba, ba, ba! Before turning it into a salmon shark fish fillet. This is like the coolest thing I've seen today. But also, I have a question. What is going on? The next manga is Ragna Crimson, recommended by Seber-san. Okay, so you know how there are dragons in so many different anime and manga? Usually they're just big flying lizards that breathe fire, right? Usually. But here, the dragons are smaller and move like ninja, which is honestly kind of sick. But then there are more powerful dragons that are basically as smart as regular people, so you can actually have a conversation with them. And then there are superior dragons that are basically humans who just happen to look like dragons and are completely overpowered. And all that is cool. But then there's the god of dragons. And apparently at some point he helped out this city, right? And then thieves from the same city destroyed his favorite cake shop. So do you know what the dragon god decided? He was going to literally end all of humanity. And I get it, cake is honestly kind of fire. The next manga comes from Wisnu Yoga, who calmly asks, for the love of God, please read Bokura no Kiseki. Okay. Okay, so can I just ask, why is there a high school in literally every single manga? And why is there always a bunch of high schoolers ganging up on some random kid who's just trying to mind his own business? Also, I don't know if it's the art style or if I'm just slowly starting to lose my mind, but I literally cannot tell any of these characters apart. So many of them look like the same person with slightly different haircuts. Like, look at these two people. Are they a different person? Are they the same person? Who knows? Trust me, this made following the story unbearable. There's this one scene where a student is like, is it a custom in the school for third years to corner the first years in the gym toilet? And then he splashes them with water and I cannot tell what is happening. Ah! I could not believe that I started off with so many absolutely incredible recommendations just to have all this weird, cursed stuff thrown at me. So I continued reading because all I wanted was to get some good manga again. Please. Okay, so Rumming says, Fire Punch, considering I read and finished it in public. Here's the thing, I've watched Chainsaw Man, but I've never actually read a Tatsuki Fujimoto manga. So this is like my official introduction to whatever is going on in this man's brain. I'm pretty excited. So, Rumming, I don't know what kind of person reads this stuff in public, but I genuinely respect it because there is no way in hell I could be sitting on a bus and reading the part where the sister tells the brother, hey bro, wanna make some babies? It's not happening. Like, that scene happens right at the beginning of the manga. Are you kidding me? The story kicks off with the world literally freezing. And we follow these two students that have a regeneration power where they can just cut off chunks of their body and they'll grow back. But here's the thing, because no one has food, these two feed themselves to people. Okay. I love that there's this one guy who just straight up starves himself because he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna eat people. Thanks. And honestly, yeah, I respect that. Then these military dudes show up and one of them has this firepower, right? Except that, of course, it is not your typical firepower. No. That would be way too easy. This fire doesn't stop burning until whatever it burns is completely gone. And because the main character keeps regenerating, it means he's basically stuck in an endless cycle of being burned and regenerated. And this goes on for 8 years until he's finally used to it. Okay, I might seem a little bit stressed, but everything in this manga is absolutely incredible. The art, the storytelling, the way it makes you question humanity, everything is so good. Except for the babies. I'm sorry. So, speaking of Tatsuki Fujimoto, Denzel Chatambutsa has ordered me to read Chainsaw Man. Listen, dude, I just read Fire Punch, and there is absolutely no way I'm even going to... Okay, so here's the thing. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is really not my type of manga. But for every single possible critique I could throw at this story, this author has created an absolute generational banger, and I completely get why everyone loses their mind over it. I know that reading 3 chapters, or even 5 chapters, or even 10 chapters of this manga is not enough to even scratch the surface of how insane it is. Even though Fujimoto clearly has some issues, you can tell this dude understands human psychology better than most people. It's super disturbing, but also just brilliant. This man has genuinely reached the absolute peak of creativity. And I'm definitely gonna finish this manga later because despite all of the weird stuff, it's amazing. But he's still a massive weirdo. So the next one is from Bushan, who says, I should read The Climber. Okay? If someone told me that I was going to be reading a story about climbing, I would have probably said that that sounds like the most boring thing imaginable. And I would have been so wrong. This is one of those manga that's going to inspire you, motivate you, and maybe you're even going to start climbing because of it. And honestly, I have infinite respect for people who have the ability to make you feel like this with their writing. Like, this is the kind of situation where you're going to close this book and suddenly want to change your entire life. And also, I'm generally not a huge fan of realistic drawings, but can you please look at this? What the heck? Okay, so the next manga has a pretty cool story, actually. So a little while ago, this dude slides into my DMs, right? And he sends me his manga called HYPERBOREA. And I'm like, okay, cool, let me check this out. I read it, and it's a masterclass. So I talked with the author, and we agreed that they would be the freaking sponsors of this video. Imagine we're in this massive post-apocalyptic wasteland, and not a random desert. This is America. We have Eos and his sister Max, and they're going on these dangerous missions for the government. And when I say dangerous, what I mean is that hands are absolutely being thrown. There's this moment that goes like, stay away from her! Let go of my sister! It's kind of like a fusion between Mad Max, Dune, and a bit of fantasy, except that the main character literally throws a freaking Rasengan. Oh, and yeah, you might have noticed that it looks absolutely beautiful. Like, can you see these backgrounds? The really cool thing is that it's based on a novel that's written by the same dude who's writing the manga, which means that they already have a really detailed plan for the next chapters. Listen, I know they're my sponsor, but I genuinely think that they've created something really cool. And they're a tiny team. So if you want to support them and see more of the manga HYPERBOREA, go throw them some money at the Kickstarter that's in the description. So this one is from Suryansh Sharma, and it's called Holyland. Let me tell you something. Ever since I made a video on Red Blue, so many people have asked me to check this out. So I swear it better be a banger. It was a banger. I already know that this is the type of story where reading 5 chapters is just not enough. There's something incredibly satisfying about watching this tiny guy beat the absolute heck out of people who are just objectively stronger than him. Like, look at this dude, and then look at this dude. The amount of detail that this author puts into explaining different fighting styles and martial arts is incredible, which is awesome for someone like me who hasn't read a ton of fighting manga yet. There's this moment where he draws so much blood after a punch that he literally stops the story and goes like, hey, listen up, reader. You might be thinking I drew way too much blood here, but you're wrong. This is exactly what would happen in real life. What a legend. What a legend. So I'm Not the Mask recommends a manga called Usogui? Okay, so you know how Blue Lock is the super exaggerated, insane version of football where everyone's basically a superhuman? This is kind of the same thing, but with casinos. I mean, just look at the main character standing there like he's about to fight the final boss. The thing that really surprised me is how this manga is actually way deeper than I expected. Throughout the first chapters, this character called Baku is basically outsmarting people who have way more money than him. But the thing is, he isn't ever afraid of doing that. He tells this other character that if he had more knowledge about the law and how money actually works, he wouldn't have to pay nearly as much money as he is. The guy even says, I've just been coasting through my entire life, never questioning the world around me, which I think a lot of us can relate to. I really love the main character because he's basically manipulating people who are trying to manipulate other people, and that just makes them look like complete idiots. At some point, he even goes into a DVD store and tries to convince the manager that they shouldn't charge him a late fee for bringing the DVD back late. Okay, next. Okay, so Richard Adu recommended I Boy, which is actually the first one-shot on this list. Question, why is this a one-shot? Like, why did they not make a full manga out of this? So there's this evil sorcerer who fights a bunch of good sorcerers, he loses, and tiny pieces of his body are scattered around the world. Maybe that sounds kind of familiar. But then the main character is a completely irregular guy who just happens to live with a piece of this evil sorcerer, specifically his eye. Best design ever, by the way. They even gave him these long black fingernails just to show he's part of some evil creature. Again, does this kind of remind you of something? Still not? Okay, seriously, I know I'm comparing this to JJK, but there are actually some pretty big differences. Like, the eyeball guy just feels like if Sukuna from JJK was just a really lazy but chill dude. He just wants to relax and hang out instead of being dragged into all of this save the world stuff. And the main character is kind of like Yuji if Yuji had very, very thick eyebrows. And to be honest, this whole thing kind of got me thinking about all the incredible one-shots that never got turned into actual series. Like, if you think about it, there's probably so many single chapters that are potentially massive masterpieces just sitting out there. Once again, you guys had absolutely blessed me with incredible recommendations. I was on a comeback. I was having the time of my life. I was feeling so optimistic about humanity and the quality of storytelling in this world. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, so Just Casual says that I might want to have a look at a shonen called Shonen No Abyss because it's interesting, but just not your regular type. Okay, nice. Saying that this is not your regular type is the biggest understatement I have ever read. This manga is sad. You know, in the subtle gut-wrenching that creeps up on you while you least expect it kind of way. Our main character lives in this tiny city. He's got a brother that never leaves the house, and a grandma who can't take care of herself anymore, and a mom who's trying to handle all this chaos with literally no help except from him. Basically, he's trapped and kind of drowning in responsibilities. Woohoo! But then he randomly meets this famous idol who for some reason is working at a gas station. They go on a date, things escalate, they go to her place, and just when you think things are getting weird, her husband shows up, sees them together, and he doesn't even care. But wait, turns out the husband is friends with the main character's mom. Listen, I have absolutely no idea where this manga is going, but I can tell it's going to some very dark places, and maybe I'm not willing to go there. So Giratina recommends either Horimiya or Vinland Saga. And since I'm already reading Vinland Saga, I'm going with the other one. First of all, I love how you recommended two things that could literally not be more different. Vinland Saga, a brutal manga about Vikings who spend their time destroying villages and slaying people. Or a cute high school romance slice of life where the biggest conflict is that this dude doesn't want to take his t-shirt off because, oh my goodness, people might see his tattoos. What are we gonna do? Weirdly enough, this is like a less soul-crushing version of the manga I told you about before. Main girl doesn't have time for anything except studying and taking care of her family, but this time she bumps into this cool guy covered in piercings. But plot twist, this dude is actually the biggest nerd in her class. Who would have thunk? You know what? I feel like with these romance slice of life manga, it's kind of impossible to tell if you're getting into something really good or just the worst thing ever unless you kind of commit to it for a while. I think that this one is actually kind of fun so far. It's got the wholesome energy, it's got the cuteness, it doesn't feel forced really, so nice. This one comes from Just Cookie Head and it's called I Hope You're Happy Lemon. Okay. Okay, so there's this couple and the girl wants to break up because she cheated on the dude with 3 different guys, and then 3 years later they randomly bump into each other and she's acting normal, and then he goes to this party where apparently everyone is cheating on each other, and then he goes home, but then the next day he wakes up and he swapped bodies with her? Why are you doing this to me? Like, why are you making me read something like this? So Tangerine says that I should read a manga called May the Exorcist Fall in Love, and I can't lie, just by reading the title alone, it kind of looks like something super wholesome and cute. This was not super wholesome and cute. There's this kid who's apparently really talented at exorcism, and the priest wants him to become so powerful that he can literally defeat Satan himself. So the priest tells his mentor, listen well, you will not teach it to be a womanizer. You will keep him away from anything immoral. You will not allow him to play or engage in leisure. So just like do nothing. But unfortunately, his mentor is someone who, how should I put this? He's what the anime community would usually call a man of culture. So that doesn't really work. There's this scene where our boy fights a demon lady, and because he found her attractive for like 1 second, he rips his own eye out. And after the fight, he realizes that his lifestyle and devotion are basically ruining his entire life. You think? But surprisingly, his mentor tells him that if he wants to find a new purpose in life, he should find someone to love. Which is honestly the most reasonable thing I've heard in this entire manga so far. I feel like exorcists are another huge manga trope that I've not really explored much at all. And this one's honestly pretty decent. It's just way more messed up than I thought it would be. So, Sat4428 tells me that I should read Goze Hotaru. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that our main character is blind. But the thing is, the author doesn't just draw her like every other character. They actually try to show you her experience of walking around and doing things by doing some really creative stuff with the art. There are some sequences that I really like where the panels go completely black, but instead of just leaving it empty, the author fills the entire thing with these scattered texts all over the place to represent sounds and thoughts. It's kind of like if they were trying to translate what it's like to navigate the world through hearing and feeling instead of sight. I think this is really cool, and honestly, I freaking love when authors try to do something original with the media. That's the kind of thing that makes me really respect the heck out of someone's work and makes me feel like they actually really care. So big respect. Okay, so I 100% remember that someone recommended Goodnight Punpun to me, and no, I'm not just adding it to the list because I really want to read it and needed an excuse, okay? Okay, so this is kind of sad. Oh, wow. This is really sad. In the span of these last few recommendations, I had gone from embarrassed to completely weirded out to happy to angry to now sitting here staring at the void. But most importantly, I was almost at the end of these recommendations. The question was, were you guys going to bless me with some absolute bangers one last time, or was I going to end this entire journey with pure hatred burning in my heart? Sorry about that. Okay, so Face4838 recommends Versus, which I've heard a lot of good things about, actually. And apparently this manga is also written by the same dude who wrote One Punch Man, so that's really cool. I just love how every time this author writes something, he just feels the need to take regular manga tropes and just completely destroy them. Like, you know how in every shonen there's like this cute and annoying character that just follows the protagonist around? Well, in this manga, the cute character is this thing. There are 47 demon kings. This one guy creates a squad of 47 heroes and goes like, all right, each one of you take one demon king, and then we'll all team up and fight the mega demon king at the end. But half a year later, most of these heroes have already failed, like, spectacularly. I mean, one of them was literally brainwashed into becoming a demon. I don't even know how that's possible. So how do they decide to turn the situation around? Not by becoming stronger, but by summoning futuristic soldiers from a separate space-time whose world is also being destroyed. And they just keep summoning people from different worlds that are all on the brink of destruction. This means that altogether, you get a bunch of magicians, people in mech suits, and a bunch of other complete weirdos all in the same manga. Just look at this panel where everyone is sitting at the table. What is even going on? Tom Shelby drops the one and only Full Metal Alchemist. And I haven't read the manga, but trust me, I have such good memories of the anime. So I am genuinely really looking forward to this. The only thing is that I do not want to see this dude in the first 5 chapters. I freaking wish I could just wipe my entire memory of the story and experience it for the first time over again. I am so jealous. If you have never ever watched or read this story, I am so jealous that you're going to experience this for the first time. Please go read or watch it. Please. Because this is already so good and it only gets better. Also, it will always kind of shock me that a dude with no facial expressions because he's in an armor has more personality than like 99% of characters out there. Okay, here's a fun fact. When I was a kid, I had no idea that gluttony was a word, so I was 100% convinced that this character was just some Italian guy called Gluttony. Tom Shelby, thank you so much for reminding me that this story is a masterpiece. I think the anime is just a tiny bit better, but this was still a massive banger. Next. Okay, so this manga called Black Torch comes from Zangetsu, and apparently it was canceled, but it's still getting an anime for some reason. So this could either be amazing or just a massive piece of trash. Let's see. Okay, this is a banger. Do you know why this manga is an instant classic? It's for one very specific reason. Because there's this one scene that literally shows an interaction every single human being has wanted to have with a cat. Are you thirsty? I just brought some water, so drink up. I'm Jiru. Do you have a name? What's this? Even if you're a stray, you should have a name, right? Are you an idiot? You couldn't understand even if I told you. Who's an idiot? I'll f you up. Did this human just reply to me? Listen, I'm sorry, but any manga that starts with a cute talking dog or a cute talking cat has already won for me. But seriously, I love everything about this manga. The art is gorgeous, the fights are incredible, the characters are great, and the story actually makes sense. How was this canceled? So Baz Veronica says that I'll enjoy Kekkaishi because this is the same author who made Kaihen Wizard, which is actually one of my favorite things right now. You know what bothers me with this type of manga? It's that it feels like one of those series like One Piece or Naruto where the beginning is all cute, all innocent, all fun, but then you read a few chapters, maybe like 10, 100, whatever, and everything becomes super brutal. What's actually kind of refreshing is that the main character doesn't want to be the main character. I mean, the entire time he's basically like, I hate this so much. Oh yeah, and he's also supposed to be the successor of his clan, but apparently he's absolutely terrible at it. The concept is pretty sick though. He has to hunt these tiny spirits because if he doesn't deal with them fast enough, they'll turn into massive dangerous monsters in the span of like a day. Also, there's this one panel that's like the coolest thing I've seen in a while. This is definitely giving me these long running shonen vibes that made me fall in love with manga in the first place. So thank you very much for the recommendation. So, right in your face, 5817 slides into my recommendations and has the absolute audacity to say that something is better than One Piece. Okay, let's find out, my dude. First thing, there's this one character with a long nose, and his name is literally Nose. What? So this is basically like One Piece if the main character looked a lot like a runway model. Also, if the pirate aspect was way more realistic and the whole story was 200 chapters instead of 1,200 chapters. But here's the thing that's kind of weird. How is this actually that good? I have literally never heard of it, and I went in expecting to roast it because it was trying to copy One Piece, but it's not. It's genuinely good. But to say that it's better than One Piece, I don't know about that. I don't know. Loaf of Web, best name ever, says that I need to read Color of the End. I think that it is very fitting that they go to a cinema in the first couple of chapters because this is absolute cinema. Dude, there was just something so cool about reading this manga to me. There's this virus spreading around, but instead of turning people into monsters or mushrooms or even zombies like every other apocalypse story, these people literally turn into crystal. Sounds stupid, but it's actually kind of terrifying. Our main character is this investigator who's trying to find survivors and cleanse the crystallosis virus. But she doesn't get infected because she's some kind of cyborg. And how do we discover that she's a cyborg? Well, for me personally, it was the moment when half her mouth got ripped off and she didn't even react. And look, I appreciate a good fight. I appreciate a good character design. But holy moly, look at those backgrounds, please. This is genuinely one of the coolest panels I've ever seen. Loaf of Web, genuinely, thank you so much for recommending me a manga that made me freaking cry from looking at a background. This is the final recommendation, and I am finally free! Listen, even if you sent me something that's completely not my vibe, even if you sent me the weirdest, most cursed, most terrible thing imaginable, I genuinely appreciate the absolute heck out of you. And just a reminder, what actually matters is not my opinion, it's your opinion if you love something. Except if it's that thing. Then maybe just listen to my opinion.